So, Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We've done this a few times,
yes.
you and I. So here we go again.
It's a torrid love affair.
So, you know, we're going to jump right into it. Last night, we were at this pretty nice little speaker dinner, and you got in a little bit of trouble for using Instagram to take a picture of the Monet exhibit, which you explicitly were told not to do.
There was no sign. In fairness to me, there was no sign that said no Instagramming of Monet. It just said no photography.
Okay.
So,
okay, and you know, maybe you were a little bit overzealous because you know, you just launched some new integrations yesterday. Yeah,
we launched. So one of the things I was excited about is that we launched the Instagram integration in the details pane, so that for now any tweets that contain an Instagram link will be rendered in the right-hand side of the Twitter interface.
Right.
We also launched integrations with SlideShare and RDIO and like a bunch of other folks. So it's great to see. One of the ideas that we had when we launched the new version of Twitter is that the details pane would be this place for a lot of rich media. And now that we're doing, you know, music and photos and videos.
And the RDIO one is cool because that's full music for the
full
first
music,
time,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
The iTunes one was kind of a little tease of that. They gave the previews, but this is full music.
Yeah, that's right. So it's great to see that expanding, and I think we're going to continue to work on that.
And so, you know, along those lines, do you kind of see that that new right pane as the new platform that people will start building things on?
I think right now we're taking a very measured approach with it. I mean, we purposely, and we said this when we launched the new version, we didn't want to just sort of like, you know, say like, it's wide open, like come put anything you want in here. So we're trying to take a measured approach and like, you know, sort of choose like, you know, particular integrations to go with. But I think in the future it will be a new place where innovation can happen and folks find new ways of sort of moving beyond the tweet and including content from outside in the greater web.
And you've got 20-some of those, right?
Yeah, 20-some right now.
And are you going to be ramping those up quicker now?
Yeah, we're gonna get, now that, you know, I mean, part of it is just getting like the initial frameworks in place,
right,
and both technical and deal-wise, and now it's, you know, continuing to just do that. And you know, we also have every day we have more folks working at Twitter, so we can get more done.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the ecosystem then. You know, there's still, I'm sure there's a lot of developers in the audience who, you know, are a little hesitant maybe to keep on developing for Twitter because of some of the moves you guys have made. You know, you've done a lot with the product, and you've kind of gone into some of the areas that they were really focusing on in the beginning. What do you kind of say to that?
Well, I mean, one thing that we've been trying to be very clear about is that we are going to be focused on trying to build the best experiences possible for our users on a number of different platforms, and that includes mobile, and that includes, you know, the web, which is why we've done what we've done with Twitter for iPhone, as well as Android and BlackBerry and the other clients there. So we're going to continue to improve those experiences, but I still, you know, I mean, I still use TweetDeck, and I still use Seesmic, and I think that those applications will continue to have a significant role in the ecosystem. Also, we're trying to increase the opportunities for folks like that. For example, we are bringing the promoted tweets product to third parties. So we started doing a test with Hootsuite, allowing them to run promoted tweets in the timeline. It was actually the first place we've ever done that, of putting promoted tweets in the timeline.
And you share revenues with them.
And we share revenue. Right. And so like that's, you know, all of those clients are something that, you know, we're trying to support on the business side as well. But I think additionally we do need to continue to work on opening up new opportunities for innovation. And I think some of the things that we've talked about that I think are ripe for innovation are particular verticals or niche experience for content consumption. So someone building a great Twitter experience for, you know, for sport, for example.
Right.
And also, as one thing that we talked about at Chirp last year was the idea of there's a lot of interesting innovation going on around relevance and finding better content, sort of folks who have different takes on how to show the best content. And I think that that's an area that will continue to see innovation as well.
Is it fair to say, though, that kind of, you know, there might be things down the road that developers are working on right now that maybe Twitter will get interested in that you just don't know right now? I mean, is that kind of what happened with some of these products?
Well, I mean, I think it's not that we didn't know we were interested in the clients. I think it was a problem of constraint, which was that the product was growing very quickly and the service was growing very quickly. And you know, through most of, from 2007 to 2009, you know, 95% of our research resources were going to just the infrastructure scaling side. And the majority of our resources are still directed towards that effort, but now we've reached a scale and gotten a better handle on some of those issues where we can, sort of walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, which means that we can, both scale the service as well as build great clients like the new version of Twitter on the website.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Moving along. What would you say is the biggest product mistake that you've made while you've been in charge of product at Twitter? And it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So I started Twitter actually before it was Twitter at Obvious in February of 2007. And we've made a lot of mistakes. Generally, any of the UI that I designed myself, there was a long period of time before we had professional designers who were trained in how to do that. And I was doing a lot of graphling. That was bad. Biz Stone and I probably had our biggest fight ever. We worked together for 8 years over I was doing UI and he was just like, I think everything you do is terrible on this, and that was a frank discussion that he and I had to have.
A lot of blink tags, maybe.
It just was complicated, and I think that's the biggest mistakes that we've made have been ones where we've gotten too complicated. And so as an example, there's a feature, so a specific example, there was a feature in the early days of Twitter back when we had IM as an interface to Twitter, where the feature could it would know if you were on with IM, and it only worked well with Yammer.
Right.
I'm sorry, not with Yammer, with Jabber.
Jabber, right.
Different mer.
Another killer product, right? Announced on stage.
It only worked well with Jabber, and it would know if you were online, and if it saw you go offline, it would say like, okay, you're offline, so now we're going to send you the messages via SMS, and it was this sort of like presence failover.
Right.
And the idea was clever, but it made it impossible for users to actually know where they were going to get the tweets, and it just didn't work. And there was this big on-off switch that said get notifications on-off on the website, and it didn't actually tell you whether or not notifications would be on or off.
So people were just getting flooded with SMS
messages? You'd get support quotes like, I'm still getting messages on my phone. It's like, oh well, just send off or something like that. It was really hard to predict what the behavior was. So in general, I think one of the lessons we learned from the early days was trying not to get too clever and trying not to get too complicated with the feature, and just trying to keep it really simple. And for me, one of the points that I think is key there is not introducing too many options. And I think one of the weakest product design choices anyone can make is, well, I don't know what the right answer is, so we'll introduce options for both. That's a particularly downfall.
That's a great segue into the next topic I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
You worked at Google for a while.
Yep.
They're kind of notorious for doing all kinds of A and B testing, doing all sorts of things like that.
Well, A/B testing is just to be clear, is a different. I think A/B testing is great.
Of course. But they roll a lot of different things out to users and let them kind of decide what they like is the best product. What's your kind of view of what they've been doing in terms of all the different things with the social elements of it? Some of the stuff is leaked out. We've written a bunch of stuff. Maybe they're doing a little toolbar sharing. Maybe they're doing something along those lines. How do you think they're doing overall?
Well, I don't know if we know the complete answer. Some stuff is leaked out, but I don't think it's fair to judge a product team on particularly Google, where everything you do is under such scrutiny. I know from having worked there, it's not really fair to judge a product or have people draw conclusions based on stuff that's just been leaked or whatever. I think we need to wait and see what they actually launch. But they have I worked in that before. I worked in the ancient stomping grounds of social at Google when it was Blogger and Orkut and Reader and stuff like that. And there's amazing folks there. And so I'm sure they'll do interesting stuff, and I'm excited to see it.
Why do you think that nothing has really caught on though for them in the social
Well,
sphere?
I don't know if I would say that, I wouldn't say that nothing's caught on for them.
Maybe not nothing has caught on, but certainly not to the extent that Twitter took off.
Yeah. I think that for a long time, well, first of all, it's the classic innovator's dilemma, right? Google has, search and ads, and those for a very long time are going to be their primary business in terms of dollars and also engineering hours spent. And that makes total sense.
Right.
So and it's hard to prioritize. It's hard to prioritize the other stuff. I think Google does this almost better than anyone, where they say, 70% of our stuff is going to go to this, and 20% is going to go elsewhere. But it's hard to focus on that other stuff. The other aspect I think is that sometimes it's just attracting product people with the right sort of DNA who are interested in that problem, and and that's something that's something you can.
And it's harder for a big company to do these
Yeah,
days.
and it's hard to do because it's a different type of product person who's interested in something like Twitter than it is in in ads and search quality, which are really interesting problems, but they're just different types of folks.
Right. In terms of like what's next, so you got new Twitter out there.
Yep.
You've gotten all these mobile clients out there in the past year or so, iPad app and everything. Maybe you don't have a specific answer for what you're working on right now, though. Feel free to give that. But maybe you have like an idea of what Twitter needs to do better. Right now.
I think if I was to put one line on what I think Twitter needs to do better, it's to create a better consumption experience, to continue to focus on the consumption experience. We're very fortunate right now in that we have close to 100 million tweets a day, and we have huge international reach. So we have something for everyone. We have some content for everyone. So I have this experience of sitting down with folks, and they say, I don't really get Twitter. And I'm like, well, what do you like? And they're like, well, I like wine, and I like Warcraft, and I like Vegas, and I like poker. These are my interests, not someone else. And I say, okay, well, great. I can create a great timeline for you of that stuff because I know that there are accounts for you to follow. Right. But I have to sit down with that person to do it. So it's how can we create a system that allows them to find that content quicker? And I think some of the stuff we've done with who to follow and suggesting accounts to people is the first part of that. But there's so much more we can do in terms of creating a great consumption experience.
Gotcha. Okay. What about in terms of your role specifically? How is product management evolved over your time there? I mean, you've been there a long time, since you were one of the first 9 employees, right? Yeah,
so my role, I started in Obvious, which if you're familiar with our kind of strange corporate history, was the company that Evan started that had both Odeo and Twitter, and I started as director of product strategy for Obvious. And my role at that point was one of the first decisions I had to make was whether or not Obvious was going to focus on, I was asked to participate in, was whether Obvious was going to focus on just Twitter or do a bunch of different stuff.
Right.
And we said, we got to do just Twitter, and we went to South by Southwest a month later, and then we decided to fund the company.
Good choice.
Yeah, it was, it turned out to be a good choice. I also wanted to change the name of the product. That would have been a bad choice.
Really? What was that going to be?
I wanted to have something that ended in ing. Because I thought it would be more present tense.
Did you have a specific thing in mind?
I thought fleeting was good.
Fleeting, okay.
Yeah, but anyway, it was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But and then I went to Twitter, and then I started doing product management, and I've had several different jobs at the company. And I think one of the things that's interesting about being a company that goes from 9 folks to over 300 folks is that your role changes a lot. So one of the things actually I wanted to talk about today here at LeWeb is my own transition. I actually announced to the company last Friday that I'm going to be leaving Twitter at the end of the month, and the reasons for that is because the company's grown a lot. The roles have changed. The roles have changed. I've been able to do a lot of different stuff. Yeah. I'm going to be staying on in an advisory role over the next couple of years. But and in terms of the changes that we've made, obviously we've done a lot of stuff recently. New CEO. And one of the things that Dick and I started talking about when he started was, you need to have the full options available to you in terms of how product can be organized and how we do this thing that we do here. And ultimately, we came to the decision that made the most sense that this would be a good time for me to step down. So I'm excited to continue, in an advisory capacity. And I'm also we wanted one of the reasons I wanted to do it here at LeWeb was because we like one of the values that we have as a company is to have open and transparent communication. We're trying to be very clear about what we want to do.
This is about as transparent. You're resigning on stage right here.
And so we wanted to try to do it live.
So, okay, the first obvious question that will come to most people's mind then is, we saw the transition from Evan Williams as CEO to Dick Costolo as CEO.
Yep.
And Evan, decided he was going to work a little bit more on the product, doing vision stuff.
Yep.
Was there any heated tension there? Is that
no.
Did it all lead to this?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with that. Ev and I actually, we've worked together in that way for a really long time. And, with Ev doing vision and me doing more of the execution side. So that has nothing to do with it. And Ev is going to continue working on product strategy. So no, it doesn't have that.
And Twitter doesn't exactly know right yet who's going to replace
you? Yeah, we're going we're going to start looking for a head of product. I'm happy to advise on sort of who the replacement would be.
And you don't know exactly what you're going to do yet.
No, I don't have any. I'm not leaving. That's an important. Thanks for asking that. That's an important point. I'm not leaving to go start something else or start something new.
You're not going to Google and you're not going to Facebook.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go do anything else. Whereas this isn't I'm going to spend time with my family, because my family consists of my girlfriend and 2 cats, like the family I live with. I also have my parents who I'm also very close with. But right. I don't need to go spend. It's not like I need a long rest or something like that. It's just a chance to take a break now.
You may or may not be going to jail after the Monet incident. But
yeah, the guard looked. I convinced him that it wasn't a problem because I didn't speak French. So,
perfect. Yeah, that's always a good excuse. So okay, let's just end with then. I mean, that's a pretty big announcement you just made. So what do you think what are you leaving to Twitter? What's the best thing, the thing you're most proud of that you did there in your time?
Yeah.
It was what, 8 years?
Well, no, Twitter hasn't been around for 8 years.
Right, but with all the with the guys there.
Yeah, so I mean, I've worked with Evan Biz for about 8 years, and I've been working on Twitter for about 4 years.
Right.
And I think so for me, it's a couple things. First of all, we have an amazing product and design team at Twitter, and I'm tremendously proud of the team that we hired. And the thing that's amazing is that we're able to find people who are just far more talented than I am, and than the folks who were doing product in the early days, like myself, Evan Biz, were, in terms of actually getting down to the details and doing big launches. As an example, the new version of Twitter is the biggest and most complicated launch I've ever been a part of. But the most important thing that I did as a part of it was to hire the product manager, Kevin Chang, who actually ran the whole process. Like the single best thing I did was answer the email from Kevin, who was like, I'm looking for a job. And then everything else was just getting stuff out of the way. And that's really what I've learned about management at Twitter, is just getting stuff out of the way so that creative people can do what they do best and make things. So I'm very proud of the team. I'm also proud of a lot of the little things that I've gotten to work on over the year. Not so much like the big parts, but I worked with Biz when we wrote the blog post about the Iranian Revolution and right. the delaying downtime so that we wouldn't get in the middle of that. And I worked on. I was the person who updated the status blog for most of 2008 and 2009.
Really?
Yeah. So all the various ways in which we learned how to say we're working on it. Top folks are on it. Right. We're really sorry. Right. that was some of my work. I also, I wrote some SQL against the production database during the election 2008 so we can find out how many tweets per second were being generated during Obama's victory, because I was running a betting pool on it in the back office. And so I'm proud of all those little moments that happen when you're building a company. But the building of the company is the thing that I'm the most proud of, because certainly when we started, we could never have anticipated that Twitter would be as successful as it's become. Right. We never would have expected in 4 years to be a company of 300 people and have the reach that it's had on human communication. We had hopes, but we certainly didn't expect that. The thing that I did have expectations for was the type of company that we wanted to create. And to me, that was a company that was focused on open and transparent communication, that was focused on the idea of ambition tempered by humility, not pretending that you have it all figured out, allowing a thing to unfold and to learn from users what a product wants to be, as opposed to having just knowing that you've got it all figured out. And we were able to find all of these people who similarly wanted to be involved in the same thing, who were attracted to the same values and attracted to the same ideas. And it worked. I mean, the people that we started with, I've worked with BizNet for a long time. It's not like we were super geniuses. So it very well couldn't have worked. We had all these idealistic notions of what a company should be, and it was just a terrible idea. But it actually did work in practice. And the fact that it's worked this well is something I think I'll always be really proud of.
All right, well, that wraps up our time exactly. So thanks a lot, Jason, and best of luck to what's next.
Thanks very much.